Hello there, this is Stephen from Priff, the British gaming accessories company. You are listening to officially, I think, our second podcast, our gaming podcast, which is meant to be monthly, but it's now just whenever, just certain months.
Whenever life doesn't get in the way.
Exactly, when life doesn't get in the way, but we will get there, And you can learn about Priff by going to www.priffgear.com. But today we're not to talk about Priff. On our podcast we talk about the wider gaming world around Priff, the world which surrounds us. I'm moving my hands to create the image of a globe and then realising none of you can see it. And joining me today, who also can't see it because we're all talking remotely, is Luke, the editor of criticalgamer.co.uk. Hello, Luke.
Hello.
Hello, and welcome. It's been a while.
It has, and thank you for having me again, sir.
Always a pleasure. And also joining us is Ben, gadget gaming, goat playing guru.
Hang on. Goat playing.
You play games about goats. Sorry. Yes.
I have done. This is something that has happened.
Always a euphemism. It's
your birth certificate is A3.
Yeah, well, that's just because it's got a few too many pictures on it.
You have and do write for a number of sites, including literally today or the other day, Tech Radar. You did a roundup of driving games.
Yes, I did, and there is more to come. So
there you go.
Tech Radar, PC Gaming.
That sounded vaguely like a threat.
Well, if you read any of my writing, I think you'll think it's not threatening. It's probably taxing.
If you take every other word in the third letter and put them together, there's a hidden message which is very threatening inside each of his articles. And Luke, ironically, you just did an article on Project Cars.
Yes, I did publish my review of the Game of the Year edition of Project Cars, and I will also have one on the official CX blog at an undefined point in the future.
Is it CEX or sex?
They like it pronounced sex, but I feel slightly silly, so even though I know from inside information it's pronounced sex, I like to say CX.
We normally talk about what we have been playing, but this time we're going to swing it on its head, or turn it on its head, and we're going to talk about what we haven't been playing, but what we wish we had been playing. Luke, what do you wish you had been playing?
Well, I have not been playing Uncharted 4, but I will be soon because I caved in and I've ordered myself a copy. Because I was very sceptical when The Last of Us people got involved, and then the main writer got booted under mysterious circumstances. So I knew I wanted to play it, but I wasn't that bothered coming up to it. But then when all the reviews are like, oh my god, it's amazing, and I've seen literally nothing but positive comments from people who have played it, so I thought, yeah, okay, I need this sooner rather than later. Although I have noticed all the reviews, a lot of reviews seem to be along the lines of, the gameplay's getting a bit boring now, but the story is dark and edgy, 10 out of 10.
Yeah, I think the Uncharted's always been about the story. In fact, the first Uncharted, the gameplay and mechanics were a bit ropey. They only came into their own on number 2. So it's always been about the story and the gorgeous graphics.
And apparently, I haven't actually seen this running, but apparently it's the best graphics ever. I think is what IGN said. But
the first 3 were the best on PS3. Pretty much do. So.
I didn't enjoy Uncharted 3 very much. I mean, it was good, but I found it was ridiculously restrictive on player movement too much of the time to force the story down your throat, whereas the first 2 games didn't do that.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see what this one does. Yeah.
And Ben, what game do you wish you had played?
Do I wish I played, like in a history of games? Or
No, just recently.
Just recently. Oh god, well, I would have said Uncharted 4 because I was talking to you about that earlier on, but I don't know. I should have probably prepared something more for this, really.
You're listening to the official Priff podcast.
After this commercial break, Ben will tell us what game he wished he'd been playing, having Googled the recent release list.
Hey, no, I think probably Battlefront, if I was going to be playing anything at the moment, that's what I would be playing at the time.
I keep thinking about putting Battlefront in my PS4 and playing it, because I really enjoy it, and then I just get tired.
Yeah.
and then it's like, no, I'll just play a single player game.
Are you having an allergic reaction of some kind?
I'm on a pump now because of my allergies. The allergy gas.
That's widening our audience.
Sorry?
That's widening our audience.
Well, there's lots of ill people in the world.
Encourage people to, email in. You could be like an agony aunt sort of figure. We could reserve 10 minutes at the end of a podcast for it.
Well, we could start each podcast with, what disease did you have this week?
Yes.
Or what disease do you wish you had? Anyway, so going back to Star Wars Battlefront. Now, I like to play Star Wars Battlefront, but often I just want to play a single player game, or more importantly, a game I can pause. And that's really important to me, which obviously you can't do with any online game, which is a great shame. So, Ben, you still haven't actually told. Oh no, you did. You said Battlefront. That's why I'm talking about it. Yeah,
well done.
Yeah, thank you. It's almost as if we're tired. Can anyone tell?
No.
So, you wish you'd played Battlefront. Do you actually own Battlefront? So when you say you wish you'd played it, do you just mean you wish you got around to playing it?
I played the beta, but never actually got the full game.
Oh, okay. Actually, well, I have to say it didn't disappoint. There's always this thing about the big hyped up games, a bit like what Luke was worried about with Uncharted 4. But Battlefront is really a blast. And also, what's really nice is you do level up, you do get better, you do get better guns the more you play it. But you don't have to work that hard to level up, and everyone can kill everyone, even if you haven't leveled up. It's not like COD. Everyone can feel like they've made a difference in that game.
Yeah, well, I did enjoy the beta, but that'll probably that and probably Far Cry Primal. I'll get on just to play around together.
Fair enough. What have I wanted to play and haven't played? To be honest, it'll probably be Uncharted as well. I will actually include one extra game, even though I have had it and I have played a little bit of it. I just haven't had much time. Is the new Ratchet & Clank game. And that also looks absolutely fantastic, and it's, again, the mechanics of that game are the mechanics of any Ratchet & Clank game, but it's silky smooth on the PS4, and so I started playing it, and but I haven't got much further into it, so I guess that's a game I would have wanted to have played this month. So there we go, a little different way of starting our podcast. Now let's move on to the more meatier subjects, gentlemen. Where should we start? Let's start with Call of Duty Infinite. I think it's called Infinite. Is it called Infinite?
It is.
Yes.
In Call of Duty Infinite versus Battlefield 1, and I'm just gonna jump in here. Battlefield 1, for all of the fact it looks amazing and everything else, or at least some people think it does, they have kind of confused people. They have gone down the Microsoft route of calling the game, a bit like Xbox One, Battlefield 1, which is obviously very confusing because it's not Battlefield 1. And does that mean the game after this one will be Battlefield 2? Because the last I looked, we've already got a Battlefield 2. So it's a bit bizarre what they've done, don't you just think?
Yeah. Well, the only thing that saves it is if you concentrate enough on the fact that it is World War One. So Battlefield WW1 maybe. But
yeah, I mean, and also maybe I do know that the history of Battlefield. I couldn't tell you the name of the game. You guys might know. Before Battlefield and DICE became what they are, there was a separate development team that sort of preceded them, which had a World War One game, and this kind of takes the roots of that supposedly.
Right, okay.
But it's still confusing to market it as Battlefield 1.
Well, considering you had Battlefield 1942 and 1943 as well.
And we've already got a Battlefield 2 and a Battlefield 3 and a Battlefield 4.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm sure it won't make that much of a difference once it comes to actually selling it.
No, I know that. I just wondered if it was a new marketing trend, though, that as companies run out of ideas and don't know what to call anything.
It is because we're talking about it. So there you go. Marketing.
There you go.
Oh, we've fallen into the trap.
You see, someone from EA are listening to this, and their entire marketing strategy was based upon them knowing that we would get round to doing a podcast around now.
I like to think that they're sitting in their table right now, kind of.
Yes, pray for talking about it. 25 grand bonuses in the bank.
There you go, exactly. So anyway, Luke, Ben, whichever one you want, you can talk on top of each other. I don't care really. But
you're listening to the official Priv
podcast.
You're
listening to me.
So, Luke, talk to me about COD and BF1 and all the shenanigans that are going on.
Well, yes, shenanigans are plenty. I think probably most people listening to this will already know about the whole likes dislikes thing, where it's now got to the point where the Infinite Warfare trailer is one of the most disliked videos on the whole of YouTube, disliked trailers on the whole of YouTube in its history, and Battlefield 1 trailer is one of the most liked trailers in its history, including movie trailers and everything. And apparently they suspect that the sheer volumes, because it's starting to creep towards 2 million on each, there's some sort of bot activity involved, which would certainly make a lot of sense. But going to the trailers themselves, I only actually watched both of them today. The Infinite Warfare trailer is very boring and does not sell the game, to me at least, in the slightest. I clicked dislike on it simply because A, it was a very boring and generic trailer, and B, there was a David Bowie cover version that absolutely slaughtered the original. Like, somebody thought, you know what, David Bowie was alright, but he didn't really get, that whole Major Tom ground control thing. Let's get this guy to do it instead much better. And it just didn't work.
I think it's just down to the fact that to pay the publishing company for the use of the song is a lot cheaper than to get permission to use the recording.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right, but then why not just have your own instrumental, because you can see what we're going for there, but alright, okay, not everybody's as pedantic as me, but
no, I know what you're saying, but I mean, just focusing on the value of these trailers, and I don't just mean these ones in particular, I just mean the way that the industry works with these CGI-led trailers. In fact, I think, to be fair, I would say the COD one at least had elements of gameplay.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure the BF1 had anything in it except the cool
It had a
animation.
couple of moments in it that were definitely gameplay in Battlefield 1, but yeah, it was mostly kind of engine render stuff. But the Call of Duty, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but it just looks like, I don't know, it's getting a bit tired now, it's still underneath it all the Quake 3 engine that's getting a little bit long in the tooth, and it just looks like more of the same from the last couple of games.
Yeah,
too futuristic. Exactly. Too, people can't associate with it.
I wouldn't say too futuristic. I would just say too generic, too boring. Nothing. There's literally nothing whatsoever that we haven't seen in 100 other games in that trailer.
The only thing I'll say good about it is, whereas some people really don't want to play a game like COD in space, and I think it's worth stating why, because a lot of people just go, oh, people are angry because it's in space. But the original COD players, and actually this is why, we'll come to the Modern Warfare thing in a minute, but the original COD players loved the fact it was a close quarters, proper military shooter at a time when most other shooters were sci-fi shooters.
Yeah.
And what COD has done over the last few years is followed the trends of Titanfall and other games and made itself all very sci-fi. But actually, if you analyse what made COD initially successful, it was a hardcore, close quarters paintball game set within the real world of military. And you can just tell by the hype and excitement that if you buy one of the limited edition versions of the game, it comes with Modern Warfare HD, people are way more interested in that than the new game.
Well, that's all I've read really in comments and stuff, is people saying, well, I don't want to have to spend 80 quid just to get a remake.
I mean, that for me is possible. It's definitely one of the best Call of Duty games, if not possibly the best. But I think for me personally, the reason I prefer that so much over later games, partly because when it comes to multiplayer, I think simply it was just better. The maps were designed so much better, because you'll notice there's a correlation between disappointment in the Call of Duty series and when most of the Infinity Ward staff jumped ship to form Respawn, who then made Titanfall. But also the story, I've always held, and I certainly think I'm in the minority here, but the campaign for Modern Warfare, the first one, I would actually argue has strong anti-war elements in it, and there's actually some very intelligent design in terms of the experience and the story that simply isn't there in most of the other Call of Duty games that followed.
Yes, I mean, Call of Duty 2 was good. Call of Duty 3 just about held together, but even then it was starting to go a bit. And I know people love the Black Ops games, and you've got a lot of esports players that love the quick scoping and all of that. So I'm not saying every game after has gone down and down. There's been a few peaks and troughs, but they did become more and more gimmicky, and they went more and more away from the idea of close quarters, hardcore military, which is what made those first 3 Modern Warfare games. Obviously, Call of Duty predate
and World at War as well. I mean, I really rated World at War, actually. I found the multiplayer was really good.
Yes, I mean, yes, you're right, actually. Anything where it's had traditional weapons, it's kind of been half decent. And actually, the first Black Ops game was like that. But then after that, it's become more and more sci-fi, more and more gimmicky, and obviously they feel a lot of pressure. And I actually, I'm going to contradict myself here, but I actually enjoyed Advanced Warfare. I thought Ghost was abysmal, especially the multiplayer. It was so nerdy. Yeah, you couldn't be a casual player at it at all. Advanced Warfare was definitely a nice hybrid between Titanfall and Halo.
Well, I was about to say, wasn't it just a bit of a rip-off of Titanfall with the boost jumping and stuff?
Oh no, that's Black Ops 3, but rips off Titanfall because you can even wall run.
Yes, Black Ops 3 takes it even further. You're absolutely right. And Black Ops 3 wasn't actually that bad, even though the story's all over the place. I mean, but it's a good blast. But even though I'm saying it's not that bad, it's really far removed from what made Modern Warfare amazing. And what made Modern Warfare amazing was it wasn't realistic, in terms of the way that the bullet physics work and the fact that you can take so many hits. It didn't have realism in it in that way, but it did have the setting of realism. It was rooted in the imagery of realism and the weaponry of realism, and it was exciting for that. And as you say, the development team was well balanced, the maps were good, and the single player narrative was really cool. So that's an analysis of what's happened with COD. But the latest Infinite is set in space. Interestingly enough, in Ghosts, which I just panned, the one level I liked was the one set in space, because the floating thing made the whole shooting mechanics of COD quite different. But yeah, I mean, does Infinite? I saw the trailer. Does it have spaceships in it, or is these just animations, or are you actually going to be flying spaceships?
No idea. I don't think there's been that much detail released yet.
So let's switch to BF1 then. So BF1, you've already mentioned, Ben, it's set in World War One. So what does that mean? What does it come with?
Well, horses, which of course are very important to any game. Biplanes, just more authentic experience, I guess you could say. But also graphically, it looks like they're turning up a notch if the screenshots and stuff to be believed, I suppose.
I'm concerned in a way about Battlefield 1, with it being set in the First World War.
How so?
Well, because, as we all know, the First World War was precipitated by the assassination of the Austro-Hungarian Archduke Franz Ferdinand by the Czechoslovakian rebel group the Black Hand. And because they didn't retaliate within enough time, they created a Cold War style situation where everybody gathered their allies, and then it became a big world war when things finally did kick off. Yes, we all know that.
Of course.
But according to the trailer, it's mainly about bashing people's heads in with melee weapons.
Well,
I
noticed that.
The other main reason I'm concerned about it,
especially baseball bats with barbed wire on their very often.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And have either of you two played the Battlefield Hardline campaign?
No.
I started it and stopped after around an hour because it was so dreary.
Well, because of course you play a cop in the Hardline campaign, and what disturbs me slightly is, more often than not, the game is, what I do like and respect is the fact that you can actually arrest people rather than just shoot them in the head, but the whole game design is geared to steer you away from that, to make that really, really difficult. And once you start a firefight by getting spotted or something, it's impossible to stop it and try and arrest anybody unless you hide and get completely unnoticed again. and it's like it's never for a second questioned the fact that you're just slaughtering everybody with automatic weapons rather than trying to get an arrest, for a trial. And so I'm thinking, if you're taking that mentality to depicting World War One in a story, and World War One was, war is always horrific, but World War One especially so because of the disease, the terrified young men who would get shot by their own government if they refused to fight and kill complete strangers from other countries. I imagine what we'll get is at one point your character will see a good friend get his leg blown off or something, so oh my god, the horror, and then that'll excuse you to go and bash some more heads in with barbed wire clubs.
But they may have Christmas Day in it, and then we can have a game of football.
That would be awesome.
There might be a sensible soccer minigame halfway through the campaign.
Well,
Suddenly you get a top-down view, and the Germans and everyone are playing football.
If there isn't, I'll be very disappointed.
Maybe it'll be the mini game between changing maps. That'd be good.
Waiting to respawn. The other thing, though, just to point out about World War One is you didn't have this dynamic battlefield. So all the traditional battlefield modes, which involve, in effect, because most battlefield, all battlefield games have very few soldiers in them. Yeah, even when you think you've got a big server, obviously it's very few compared to real life.
Yeah.
So you have moving mission targets, and you cover a heck of a lot of territory in a battlefield game, traditionally. But in World War One, no one covered any territory.
They all stayed in the trenches.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
So I understand they're using it as a setting, but the original game that I was telling you about, which name I can't remember, which was predates Battlefield, but is connected to the developers. You may find that they've said it's in World War One, but what they meant is World War One era, and it's not the World War One we know.
I don't know, because they might have made that clear if that's what they wanted to do, but commercially it's more viable for them to try and make it a historical World War One game, simply because it's not difficult to look at the market and see that's exactly the sort of thing that people are crying out for at the moment.
You think? World War One still has, unlike World War Two, even though more people died, but it still has this air of it was a tragedy. This way of looking at the war, because it's been so long now. We very much look at the human side of it, and so World War One is still a war which, not that you should glorify any kind of killing, but it's still a war that we certainly don't go out of our way to glorify. We don't have many movies about it even now, about the heroes. In fact, I don't think you ever have with World War One. It's not just a recent thing. It's World War One has always been seen in that light, whereas World War Two, the camp, maybe it's because it was more dynamic, it was more exciting, literally on the ground. But World War II is still about the heroes and the campaigns and this mission and that mission, and World War One is still not looked at. Name me a World War One movie which isn't about how miserable it was.
Well, that's the thing. I think part of the reason that media concentrates on World War II is because it ended much closer to the emergence of these technologies and the stories they wanted to tell, and it was more recent in the minds of the populace and the governments who wanted to push their own individual interpretations and justifications, which is why it's such a controversial subject still, in Japan, for example. But also World War One, it's in the government, to put my tinfoil hat on slightly, it's in all government's interests to avoid too close an examination of World War One, because you don't need to look very closely to see that it's an excellent example of the true ugliness of warfare.
Okay, yes, I get what you're saying, but World War One's never been a war anyone wanted to do. So, but either way, you're kind of saying the same thing as me, which is there's no real. I don't think there is a demand for World War One to be turned into an action movie, and there never has. There never were movies even in the 30s before World War II ever existed. World War One, and so I think they might use an alternative timeline, but use the World War One universe. That way, it's not a direct comparison.
No, you may well be right. but what I meant was not that there's a demand specifically for World War One, but for a historical warfare game grounded in reality. And so then what you could look at there is, okay, let's use World War One precisely because it's so rarely explored in games. And incidentally, I'm not saying that games can't intelligently or sensitively handle a subject like World War One, because Valiant Hearts did a surprising and amazing and excellent job of tackling that with a cartoon presentation. But anyway, so perhaps, I mean, you may well be right, and it's like an alternate reality thing, and that will work out better all round, I think. But if they don't, I think it's simply because they see that people are getting tired of a sci-fi thing. They want something grounded in historical warfare, and they've gone for World War One simply because it hasn't really been done much before.
Yeah, fair enough.
I think
And go on,
at the end of the day, sorry, go on. Battlefield, in the multiplayer way, you know, that most people are going to experience it. You know, the vast majority of people will buy it and go straight into multiplayer rather than even bothering with the single player. Really, they're just then setting it in World War One for, you know, the hardware from that era. It's just so that they can have the tanks and horses and biplanes all next to each other. I don't think it's necessarily any deeper than that.
You're also going to have horses getting killed. The animal rights people are going to be up in arms.
Maybe they'll be invincible horses.
They might. They may well be invincible horses. Or you could do like what I love doing in Battlefield 4. Stick some C4 on the side of your horse, ride it at top speed toward the enemy, and then dive off at the last minute so your horse explodes in a huge cloud of limbs and gore.
Oh, well, you know, if you can do it in Battlefield 4, then I'm not sure we have to worry about sensitivity in this one.
No, absolutely. So anyway, we'll see who comes out on top, but predictions before we move on to the next subject. Who's going to win this time? Everyone always says this is the year BF is going to overtake COD, and ironically it never is. But what do you think? This is the year Battlefield overtakes COD?
I think it might be, personally. COD... Well, most people's reaction seems to be that COD's just getting too boring.
Luke?
I think it's going to be very close, but yeah, I think Battlefield might, initially at least, win out in the sales.
I think EA have a pincer movement strategy. They announced today that they're not worried about Titanfall coming out very close to Battlefield because they're aimed at different demographics. And I think, I'm not saying they're right, but I'm saying EA's logic is probably that Titanfall 2 will pick up the COD instant action sci-fi Black Ops audience, and Battlefield 1 will pick up the hardcore want to be part of a military shooter audience.
Well, that makes a lot of sense.
I think so. So as opposed to having one game which is a huge franchise, you build up two communities, which also spreads the risk as time goes on. So if one game loses its way, you've still got a separated community. That's what I think they do. But anyway, let's move on because it's getting late. Another Infinity, Disney Infinity, one of those games where you can sort of do what you want inside it, a better looking Minecraft, but one which is linked to parents having to buy many different figurines, and by buying the figurines, code which is more or less already in the game is then made active because the game recognises that you've spent too much money in a toy shop.
Gives you content out of sympathy.
Yes, even as we say, the content's, I think, already in the game. So it's a bit like the old thing of paying for DLC, which unlocks stuff already on a disc. I think that's how all these things work, but maybe I'm wrong. But the point is, that's the description of what it is. But the news story is Disney is shutting it down, like after, I think, only 2 years, which they're closing the development studio, which is very sad for the 300 people losing their jobs. They're pulling out of game development directly themselves. They're just going to license stuff out. But more importantly, they've killed the Disney Infinity platform after parents have gone and invested a ton of money into it. Is this just a sign that Disney Infinity didn't work, or actually is it more a sign that the selling bits of plastic figurine market, of which we know about Skylanders and Nintendo Amiibo and even Lego Dimensions, the market got really crowded in the last year. Is it just they couldn't compete with them and they got squeezed out? What's your gut feeling, Luke, your parent?
Correct.
I was going to say, I haven't played them, so you take the lead, Luke.
Well, as it happens, I am actually right now looking at a Disney Infinity free hub and half dozen or so figures that we've got for for our daughters. We didn't have the first one, had Disney Infinity 2 upgraded to free because Anna and Elsa figures from Frozen and so on. Personally, I would say a large part of the reason perhaps why they had to shut up the development studio and close down Disney Infinity is because the game is crap. There's just nothing to it. I mean, my
Simple
kids,
as that.
well, it's obviously not, but it's, especially when you consider it's a Disney product. I was shocked at the sheer lack of substance in this thing.
So they've got the characters, they've got what they call the playsets, so you can create the worlds, but is there not much to do in them?
Well, no, there's a lot where you can create. You get like play sets and sort of virtual bits of building blocks and building sets and so on, so you can make your own little world or forest or whatever.
But is there much to do in it once you've made it?
No, that's my issue. There, so far as I can tell, at least, you do get like some mini levels per character, or at least little discs and things, but they're not substantial by any means, nor are they particularly interesting or exciting. I mean, when you first put the disc in, there's a massively misleading introduction level that you can play, where it has some of the biggest Disney characters and it's very exciting and cinematic, and then you play the actual game and it's not like that at all. Another reason perhaps I don't know why it failed is because it caused absolutely massive arguments because it's played together, but I don't know if that's just Star Daughters.
But Ben, you must have noticed in the last few years this sub-industry, or some would even say industry by itself. I mean, when people look at the chart data for accessories, Skylanders, and it's like a whole thing, and it's a whole world in its own. It dwarfs the kind of accessories that we do.
Yeah, of course. I have noticed it and stuff, but no, the only real interaction I've had is a couple of years ago when I worked in a shop and having worried parents coming in at Christmas going, "Have you got this Disney Infinity thing?"
And Skylanders is still going strong. I believe that's still going strong. My own son.
Isn't that basically the same
wanted to
thing?
get it.
I mean, I don't know.
Well, no, it's not a Minecraft rip-off, which is I think what Disney is. It's. I mean, I haven't played the main Skylanders game. But I think they were proper adventure games. And the game my son just got on his DS is actually a Mario Kart style game. And by having the different characters, it unlocks things in that. So the games themselves are what I call recognisable games. And I think the adventure games are like third person. I mean, it started off like a Spyro. Remember Spyro the Dragon?
Oh yeah.
I'm sure Skylanders started off like that, and then all the other characters came. So they sort of used Spyro. They reinvented Spyro within this world of Skylanders. I think that's right. Someone might email in to us.
I'm trying to think. Well,
Escurovitz at Priff.
Especially if you don't give them an email address.
I was going to say I couldn't remember what my email address was. Escurovitz. That's SGUREVITZ at priff.co.uk. Very hard to spell things when you're dyslexic, even when it's your name. So, good thing I help update the blog and edit it, really, isn't it? So those Skylander games are very much games. And then, of course, the Nintendo Amiibos are actually quite clever because they work across many games. And the Lego Dimensions I haven't touched at all. Has any of you touched it?
Nope.
I've touched a box in Sainsbury's, if that's what you mean. But
Okay,
I haven't actually played it, no. It looks.
Have you seen any
I like
stuff?
the concept of it, but I haven't played it. I've not even seen it being demoed or anything, so
No,
I'm
me neither.
very ignorant of that.
So what is the concept of it? Is it, again, Lego Minecraft?
Well, because again, you need to buy all these different figures and play sets and things. But first of all, the sets themselves are actually proper Lego, so you can just play with them normally. But each set unlocks new. Well, yeah, it's similar to the other games where it unlocks characters and levels and stages and things within the game. But how much depth you get to that, I have absolutely no idea because I haven't even read any reviews actually, to be honest with you, and I haven't played it, haven't seen it being played. So I don't know how much you get for your money.
I mean, the only thing I'll say is obviously we know that there's a long, quite old now, but in gaming terms, pedigree of Lego games. And so at least they know how to make fun Lego games. I've say, by the way, just talking about Lego games, I've played recently the Marvel ones, and I've got the Batman one, and there's that. The best two Lego games, in my opinion, Ben's going to sigh because it involves Nintendo, but it doesn't involve Nintendo. It could have been on any platform. They just happen to be the two best Lego games, are the Wii U and 3DS Lego City games.
I'll
Lego
take your
City,
word for it.
Sorry, Ben.
I'll
Sorry,
take your
Ben.
word
Pour
for it,
forth
Asif.
with a hate.
No hate from me.
I haven't played the 3DS one, although I wanted to. Lego City Undercover, which is the Wii U one, I absolutely love, and I would fully agree. I mean, personally, that the only game that would jostle for position in first place in Lego titles for me, it would be Lego Marvel Superheroes. Not the Avengers one, which I was disappointed with, but Marvel Superheroes. But yeah, Lego City Undercover, it's got a fantastic script, it's hilarious, it's great fun to play as well. It's got a few graphical problems, but generally I had so much fun with that. That's actually one of the games I've had the most fun with on any format over the last 5 years or so.
Yeah, and it's truly open world. I mean, it's a proper kids GTA, but a lot of the humour can really be appreciated by adults, and it's a terrific game. Anyway, I digress, but that is actually a terrific game, and I'd like to see more Lego City come out on the other consoles. But so anyway, Disney Infinity, a lot of upset parents are going to be out there thinking, I've just spent all this money, and but more importantly, just quickly, the wider thing, Disney aren't going to be making games. Now you might say, well, it's not a big thing, they didn't actually make money in the first place, and they already have stopped making games before because they closed the studio that was it Spectre? What's his name? Was part of that did the Mickey
Warren
Mouse.
Spectre.
They closed his
Mickey
studio
games.
and they announced they were getting out of games. And
Junction
then
Point, that was one. Junction Point Software.
Yes, and then exactly the same time they announced they were doing Disney Infinity, so they weren't getting out of games. But this time it seems like they're getting out of games. Is that bizarre? Is that sad? Or is it just that's fine because they don't really know what they're doing?
Well, do they really need to be in games when all they need to do is collect license money from the hundreds of Star Wars games that are going to come out over the next
That's
few years?
exactly what they're doing now.
They don't need to do it themselves now. EA's basically doing most of the form, probably.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think I hadn't seen it from that perspective, but that's an easy answer. The only question is, you wonder if they'll just buy EA at some point.
Well, yeah. I'm not sure if EA would want to be entirely bought out. They're quite happy.
No, but they might have no choice, and they might just get bought out on the shares. So
I
anyway,
don't think Disney would, because after having their fingers burned financially by direct involvement in games, I think they'd see that as too much of a gamble. I think that's
It's a
largely
lot easier just to sit back and collect the license money of these massive franchises that you own.
So, talking about sitting back, Ben, you wanted to talk about Nintendo's non-2016.
Well, it's nothing's happening, is it? The 2016 doesn't exist as far as Nintendo are concerned.
Yeah, they decided to skip. They decided to skip the year.
Yeah, they're just trying to distract people with a couple of mobile apps, and
there is
and
that
all
Wii
of
U
the
exclusive
decent stuff.
RPG coming up though, which actually looks quite good.
Which is
The one I can't remember the name of, but it does look. No, I can't. What is it? I think it's got a weird name, as so many of them do. Tokyo Mirage Sessions Cross FE.
Right.
The FE being for Fire Emblem, because it's got some Fire Emblem characters in there. But I've seen a couple of trailers, and it's got a lot of potential. I like the look of it. People compare it to
it's not
Persona.
exactly a mainstream kind of.
Oh no, of
beat-coating
course
game
not.
for them, is
But
it?
then
it's not Zelda, which is what
No,
everyone
no,
was
no.
looking forward to.
I would argue Zelda's not even mainstream, to be honest with you. As far as the bigger picture goes.
It could be.
Well,
It
yeah.
could be if they
most-
made it look so amazing and next gen, and it was truly open world, and they got the imagery right, and maybe they even had a female lead. I reckon if they played their cards right, they could turn it into the gaming equivalent of the Hunger Games. But I don't know if they're brave enough to do that. And who knows when it's ever going to come out. But you can imagine it could be a sort of Hunger Gamey type lore-based, The Witcher for the mass market, because The Witcher, for as much as it gets acclaim, it's not a mass market game. So Zelda could be The Witcher for the mass market, or even a third-person Skyfall for the mass market. But I don't know if Nintendo have the vision to be able to pull that off. But I wouldn't say this whole year was wasted. I mean, we joke about it, but they've released their mobile. They've released their mobile app.
Yeah.
And now they've said they're releasing, was it Animal Crossing and Fire Emblem as free-to-play mobile games? They're clearly using this year to get a big mobile audience, and then they'll try to convert that audience back to their hardware.
That's another game they are bringing out. Their main game, though, 3DS, is a new Fire Emblem game, which, in terms of the industry, is a relatively big release. Yokai Watch, which I've also recently reviewed, has come out very recently. Absolutely massive in Japan.
That's the new kind of Pokemon successor, isn't it? Really, that's what they're saying.
It has similarities, yeah. I found it to be quite a good game. How well it does remains to be seen. But yeah, in Japan, absolutely massive. It was the Yokai Watch 2 movie over in Japan topped the cinema charts, as opposed to, I can't even remember what The Force Awakens. It beat The Force Awakens to the top of the Japanese cinema charts. But no, you're right. It's not an empty year for them, but definitely very quiet.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing on the Wii U due to come out, which is big, is there now? We're going to talk about Star Fox in a minute, but Star Fox aside, which I don't think is a big release. What else is there on the Wii U that's big? That's definitely coming out this year. Yes, exactly.
Dong.
Yeah. And they said the only thing they're showing at E3 is Zelda.
Well, quite honestly, why would they come out now and say yes, the NX is definitely coming next year, if they had anything else to excite people in the meantime?
Because the NX is coming out not till March.
Yeah.
So what on earth are they doing between October and January, the biggest months of the entire gaming year?
Not a lot, by the sounds of it.
Yeah, I mean, unless they're going to really surprise everyone at E3, or maybe they think they can pull the old GTA trick and suddenly Zelda will come out a few months early on the Wii U and then we'll all buy it again on the NX.
It's being released simultaneously, though, isn't it, on the Wii U and NX?
Yeah,
well, they said that, but they could always change their minds, couldn't
they? They won't. Although I did half suspect that they would do something like that. It's like, I think it was the last podcast actually when I said, first of all, I knew the NX wasn't going to come out this year, and I also said I also knew it would still remain on the Wii U, but there was a chance it would release simultaneously on the NX, like they did with Twilight Princess on the GameCube and the Wii. I think they'll do that. It is a little bit of a weird strategy, but that's Nintendo basically.
But meanwhile, the Wii U isn't sitting there in the shops, and no one's selling Wii U. So, I suppose from their point of view, is actually, it's not that what do they do with the Wii U until the NX releases. In reality, except in Japan, and maybe specific parts of America, and online in Europe, it's only online, the Wii U is dead. There is no one buying any new Wii U's, and anyone who's already got a Wii U, they've got their value out of it with the games that have been released. So I guess Nintendo's view isn't that what do you do with the Wii U, it's just that the Wii U is actually dead. They're just not going to announce it's dead, and so that's that. It's finished.
Just going to keep
it's
it
done.
ticking over for now.
I think
digital distribution stuff.
Yeah, exactly. E-games and stuff, and that's it. I think that people have to accept that's what it is on Wii U. 3DS, on the other hand, as you said, Luke, there's some Fire Emblem games coming out, and I think there'll be more announcements. I think 3DS is a viable system right until the NX comes out, and maybe beyond. I mean, no one's quite too sure what they're doing with the 3DS because no one quite knows what the NX is. Is it a replacement, so they just have one machine? Is it a platform, or actually will the 3DS sit alongside it and do its own thing for some time to come? Who knows really. So anyway, Ben, you wanted to write Nintendo. I think that's a good sort of fast but accurate summary of Nintendo, which is 2016 is all about mobile. No, I think 2016 for Nintendo is all about mobile, and it's all about widening their community via mobile, bringing people back to Nintendo.
Have you seen the new Pokemon, the one that's kind of location-based Pokemon mobile game?
The mobile game, I don't know. I thought you were talking about Sun and Moon, because that's another very big 3DS games that will be coming out this year. But no, I haven't really kept much of an eye on them.
You're talking about the Ingress team. So Nintendo bought a stake of the team who make Ingress, and Ingress is huge, and that's the location-based app game that Google used to push. Do you know the one I mean?
Yeah. So they've taken the core stuff from that and basically turned it into a mobile iOS Android game. It's like Pokemon trainer. And
But
it's
it's almost like you're playing in the real world.
Yeah, you have to go around to certain locations to collect.
It's like
Sounds like a job.
It sounds like
Go,
geotagging
there you go.
it's geotagging merged with traditional gameplay.
Yeah.
I've got friends who play Ingress, and yes, it's really cool for those that get into it. And actually, that could be huge. So you could say that Nintendo are pressing the restart button. They're using mobile as a way to reach out and reconnect with people they've lost, and to bring in new people. And then through that, maybe they hope they can then migrate them onto more robust, mature gaming specific platforms in the future. I would imagine that is their strategy.
I think they've announced to us exactly what they want to do, isn't it?
Well, they announced it in a kind of roundabout way, but I think that this is the first time we can sort of maybe stop time and say, well, based upon the fact nothing else is happening in 2016, they're actually, as opposed to this is what's happening in parallel to what we normally do, I think in reality this is what 2016 is all about.
I think another reason it's so quiet for the 3DS and the Wii U this year is that Nintendo have been very vocal about the fact that they won't make the same mistake with the NX they made with the Wii U, in that the machine's not going to release with a couple of games and then nothing for like a year. They've committed themselves to releasing a big chunk of games, first party games as well, which is what they finally realised people actually want them to do. So we are going to see a lot of regular releases from them, which they completely failed to do with the Wii U, and so they've probably got all their teams working on these games rather than Wii U and 3DS ones, generally speaking.
Agreed. I think it's exactly what's going on. So moving on, we've got two more subjects. In fact, we'll stay with Nintendo. Luke, tell us about Star Fox, and tell us, because I know that you've done 2 reviews for it, tell us what you think of it, and then also tell us, is it relevant anymore?
Yes, Star Fox, I have reviewed it twice. I think it is a good game. That's not just my review. But yeah, it has been massively polarising in a way that not many games are, really, to be honest. And it basically comes down to the controls.
That's all I've heard about it.
Yeah, it is, for those who perhaps don't know, it's Star Fox 64, which was re-released via the Wii Virtual Console, and it was spruced up for a 3DS physical release with some extra bits and bobs, and now it's the same game again, but giving a much more thorough remix, while definitely staying recognisable for the Wii U.
It's the same game.
It is Star Fox 64, but it's got a brand new leveling mechanics. It's got a couple of brand new vehicles. Obviously, it looks better. They've mixed things around.
But it's still fundamentally the same story as it was.
Oh yeah. It fundamentally
it's still Star
is
Fox
Star
64.
Fox 64.
I saw some gameplay. I thought it was just you sometimes get levels in new games that hark back to the old ones, but then it goes on to something new. It's a blimey. I mean, well, you're not excited, man. I just think that's lazy to re-release the same game in HD twice.
Well, that's the thing, that it's not just an HD re-release, but a lot of work has gone. While it is definitely recognisably Star Fox 64, it's, I don't know, it's like something comparable. Say, if you take a classic movie in black and white and you produce it in colour, you put it to full 1080p HD on Blu-ray, and it's a director's cut, so some scenes are completely reshot with new lines, there's a load of new extra scenes in there, so it's still recognisably the same film, but also different from the original version. That's the closest sort of comparison I can get.
Okay, well, if you use that analogy, I guess that's acceptable, because obviously many people do rebuy movies, but I don't think it's been communicated to the general public, but maybe I just missed it, that it's what you just said. I think it's been communicated it's a new Star Fox game.
Well, because Nintendo described it a bit oddly before it was properly revealed and full details came out, because Nintendo said it wasn't a sequel and it wasn't a prequel and it wasn't a re-release, and all of those things are strictly true. But
except that if that's bending the truth a lot, it's actually a re-release, but an HD version with new controls.
I mean,
with a bit of extra remix content.
To be perfectly honest, it's very difficult to get across the differences without overselling it, the best way would be to sit down, play the original for a couple of minutes, and then play the new one, and you'd see how it's the same but different, which is a very lame way of explaining it, but still fairly accurate.
I just finished Star Fox 64, the 3DS version. I found it cheap for £7, and I'd never got it when it came out. It's, that's a lot of fun, but I don't think I'd want to play the whole thing again and pay, what is it, £40? Or are they selling it cheaper because it's a remake?
Well, I mean, online you can find it easily for about 30 or so somewhere the other day for 25. But I really enjoyed it. But then, like I say, it's not just VR in it. It's got other vehicles in there, including the Walker from the canned Star Fox 2, so that's been used. It has got a whole new level. The existing levels have been remixed in some ways. You've got challenge and training missions in there now as well, which, while they're not massive levels, are surprisingly difficult to get through actually.
But is this the end of Star Fox? I mean, you must think I've turned into Ben and Mr. Negative on this, but being serious, they've now released, whichever way we want to say it, sound like the gaming version of Jeremy Paxman. They've now re-released the same game a number of times, whichever way you want to remix it. And they seem not to be able to put together a new Star Fox game. Well, so is this it for Star Fox, or do you think they just used it as a vehicle to prove why the Wii U has a second screen, but one day we'll see something new? I mean, do the kids care about Star Fox? Does anyone care about Star Fox except for people that played it in the past?
I reminisce about Star Fox, having played it on the Super Nintendo stuff, but I don't have any real desire to play a new one because it's one of those games where you kind of go, no, I know my memory will be tarnished by whatever it is now.
I was a little disappointed it's not a brand new one, but perhaps what they're doing is they've released this as a sort of stopgap to keep it in the public consciousness because they're developing a new one for the NX. Possibly, who knows. But where you said, are they also doing it to try and justify the gamepad's existence pretty much, I think that's a big chunk of it, and that's where the motion controls come in, which have been controversial for so many people. And for as much as I enjoy the game, and I genuinely did enjoy it, had a lot of fun with it, I'll probably go back to it again when I have more time as well. Commercially, it was a very bad decision to not make the motion controls completely optional, which I think Nintendo are probably now realising. But I mean, personally, when I first heard that you can move the reticule by moving the gamepad physically, I'm not a big fan of that sort of thing anyway, despite the fact that yes, I voted Nintendo consoles. I thought, oh my god, what have you done? Why have you done this? I was going to enjoy playing this game, and I started playing it, and I thought, oh, actually, this works really well, and I'm really enjoying it, and I feel like I'm playing the ultimate version of Star Fox here. This is actually really good. But I mean,
I to play devil's advocate with my own negativity, I mean, I'm currently rewatching Battlestar Galactica, the remake. I love that. Okay, but if someone in effect gave me a new Star Fox game with a big, almost open world space thing, with the Star Fox characters in it, and just absolutely amazing next gen graphics, and it felt like Battlefront. I don't care if it's cartoony characters. I'd love that. I think that'd be brilliant, and that's what I want Nintendo to do. But their vision with Star Fox seems really, really limited. And they don't know what to do with it, because let's remember, on the GameCube they came out with a third-person Zelda-esque adventure.
That was a Rare game. Well, that was in the days.
It's actually a very good game.
That Rare had been sort of internally demolished just before they sold them off to Microsoft. I completely agree. That's exactly the sort of Star Fox game I'd like to see as well. And we can but hope that that's exactly what they've got in the pot for NX. But Nintendo are completely impossible to predict. NX might be revealed and it's like a kettle with a hat on or something. It's no way of knowing what Nintendo are up to.
Well, talking about things that are going to be not kettles with hats on. There's things that are going to be revealed. Let's just finish off our lovely little podcast talking about No Man's Sky. We predicted when it was going to come out last time we did a podcast. Who was right?
I think wasn't Luke the closest, as much as it pains me to say it.
I think he may have been. Except, we were discussing this before we started the podcast. I have a theory. It's going to be delayed by the magic 2 weeks, just at the last minute. Yeah. What do you think?
I'm going to gamble and stick with my original thing of it will arrive on time as stated.
Ben?
I'm sticking as well because I've seen increasingly quite a bit of gameplay footage of it, and it looks like they're basically there and they're just fiddling with it now. And yeah, I think that'll make it.
Fair enough. I'm probably just being negative. As we said before the podcast, why is it always 2 weeks? Why is it games always delayed by 2 weeks? Never for 9 days. It's like a new trend. Instead of games being released with patches, they're just being delayed for 2 weeks.
It's almost like they're just going, well, we'll just give ourselves 2 weeks just in case something else crops up, you know.
It's an anxiety reaction almost. It's just like, you know. So anyway, talking of that, we'll see if we can do another podcast in 4 weeks. But if not, at the last minute, it might be delayed by 2 weeks.
Well,
so,
Luke
and
Luke
Ben.
predict it, and whatever Luke says will go.
Yes, he was right last time. So, thank you everyone for listening to our rambling about the gaming industry. Ben, thank you for joining me. Luke, thank you for joining me. Hope you both had a good time. And we will try to hook up again in around 4 weeks' time and take it from there. So, you've been listening to the Prif Gear podcast. Thank you for joining us, and catch us next time. Bye bye.